What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMALOTN. We're back. We had 1 week off, and it feels like I'm shaking off the rust still. I can't believe it's only been 1 week that we had off, but it feels like forever because even when I was recording my podcast breakdowns for the last couple shows, or the last breakdowns for the pre-recorded show that I dropped for this week, I felt slumpy. I felt I felt rusty. Like it just felt weird to me even right now. Like it feels rusty to me right now. I'm sure that eventually I'll be able to get my footing back under me, and we can just proceed as normal. But shout out to everybody that's already in the live stream right now. I'm sure we're going to get back up to the normal 100 to 150 live viewers as usual. But yeah, we're going over UFC Vegas 28 this week, headlined by Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Augusto Sakai, two heavyweights that are still trying to find their footing within this division. Not to mention they're both coming off of losses right now, and they're really trying to figure it out and where they're going to be going. And in terms of the name value to have in a main event slot here, I don't really understand the reasoning behind it. This fight seems like it's going to go the full 25 minutes as well. There is the chance that Jairzinho Rozenstruik could catch the knockout himself, but still, it's very sketchy in terms of how this fight is actually going to play out, and the reasoning behind this main event. But there are some good fights littered throughout the card. Santiago Ponzinibio versus Miguel Baeza. Great fight. Do we get to see Ponzinibio go back to his old ways, or is this tough run since he's come back from his extended layoff going to continue? And going up against a guy like Miguel Baeza, it's going to be tough for him to truly turn things around, especially against a young up-and-comer like Baeza. But yeah, man, it just feels nice to be back. Let's just put it that way. First and foremost, I'm gonna have to shake off the rust a little bit throughout the beginning of the stream, and see how it goes. So, first and foremost, if you guys are already in the live chat, please do hit that like and subscribe below if you haven't already, because that truly helps your boy out to the utmost degree, or the nth degree, I should call it, whatever that fucking saying is. You guys know what I'm talking about. The Ultimate Fighter does begin tonight as well. It kicks off about in an hour or so. ESPN Plus everywhere, but up here in Canada, we do have the luxury of having it on Fight Pass. So if you have a Fight Pass subscription, make sure you guys are able to go check that out. I'll probably check out the first episode, to be honest, in full, just to get familiar with the guys and all that type of stuff. But then going forward, I'll probably just watch the fight that they normally have at the end of the episodes. With that said, I'm not sure if they're going to change up the format of this season or anything like that to try to rejuvenate it. But it's been a while since we had the Ultimate Fighter around, so they're trying to maybe fix things and see how they can make it appealing to the masses once again, but we'll see how it goes down. In terms of the coaches, I feel like they could have done better. Don't get me wrong, the matchup between Ortega and Volkanovski is going to be great, but I'm not sure how they're going to come across on the camera, and how much it truly will capture an audience in terms of wanting to make them watch it more so. All right, let's not waste too much more time. Let me pop this live, or sorry, this the slideshow up for you guys. Now we can get the thing on the road. So first and foremost, as always, we go over our last event. And it was a successful one. That's two straight winning events now. If you guys remember, we were on an 11 event winning streak. God damn, that would have been horrible, eh? 11 event winning streak, which got busted by Bellator 258, I believe it was, as well as the other event that was that weekend for the UFC. So two straight losing events there, and now we bounce back with two straight winning events, hoping to make it three straight with UFC this weekend. So let's see how that goes. But going over the last show, or the last event, which was 2 weeks ago at this point in time, Carla Esparza was my dog of the night play. I had 2 units on her at plus 100. Shout out to anybody that was able to get the plus 140, plus 160 on Carla, as I thought that line was absolutely criminal. And she went out there and did work, so much so to the point that she actually ended up getting a finish. I was very surprised that she was actually able to notch that finish, but good for her. Makes us have to sweat out, or not have to sweat out Actually, you know what? That fight wasn't even a sweat to begin with. She controlled that fight from the jump, and she looked very, very dominant. She looked very good, and I look forward to seeing how they match her up in the future. There is already a built-in storyline with her and the current champion, Rose Namajunas, so that should be interesting in terms of if they actually match them up and if Rose wants to get that loss back. And then the lock of the night play, very straightforward. Chalky as hell. Call me square, call me whatever it is, but we're cashing tickets at the end of the day. Minus 166 parlay, 5 units on Demir Ismagulov, who, made it a little bit more of a sweat than I wanted it to be. Not to mention that third round was very, very sketchy, right? Alves was coming on in an instance where I thought he was actually going to be slowing down, but he did come on. Luckily for us, Ismagulov was able to eat the shots that he was receiving, and still was able to see the judges' scorecards and get his hand raised. And then Bruno Silva goes out there and absolutely dominates Victor Rodriguez, gets it done ASAP. So thankfully, we're able to cash the the lock of the night play. So super easy right there for us. Plus 5.02 units on the last event. Clean sweep, just how we like it. And rolling into this next event that we can actually go out there and secure a third straight winning event. Off the jump, though, I do want to remind you guys, the Patreon and patreon.com/MMALOTN. Link is in the description below. I already have my Lock of the Night play posted on there. I will have my Dog of the Night play posted in the next, I'm hoping within the next 24 hours. I'm just waiting for Intertops to drop a couple more lines and see how it goes. And sorry, I just lost my train of thought because some shit in the the chat, which I'll eventually address. So yeah, good win there. Good event last time around, and coming this weekend we're gonna have another solid event. Oh yeah, the Patreon is what I was talking about. Make sure you guys go out there and check out the Patreon. My Lock Night play is already up there. The Dog Night play will be dropping very shortly. I'm actually gonna have 2 dog night plays, and hopefully you guys can pick them out, as I do think that there are a ton of live dogs on this card. A lot of very, very live dogs that are going to be able to go out there and spring the upset. All right, let's see. Seems like we got so many trolls in here. Interesting. Let me just. E-Beggar and Brown. Look at that. Look at all of these. Okay, whatever it is. I don't understand what's going on, but these guys are crazy. What is good? All right. Jesus. What is on YouTube today? This is insane. What the hell is going on? Yeah, I've never seen this much craziness. Yeah, average Joe is on the money here. Bots like just absolutely spamming the chat up right now. I'm just trying to clear this up so that's not super annoying moving forward. All right. How are they still posting? How is I don't get what's happening right now. What the hell is going on? I don't. I'm not sure what the hell is going on. This is insane. right? Like I see Matt Hudson in there. Yeah, I don't know what happened while I was gone for this 1 week, but geez Louise. Whew. All right. What the fuck is going on? You guys are seeing this too, right? This is crazy. It don't stop. Who is this guy? Yeah, what the hell is this? I know. I'm blocking literally all of them. I know. What did I do to a guy named Hassan Piker? What is this? This is absolutely insane. Whew, okay, I gotta get on with the stream here. I can't even do my stream right now. This is insane. How am I supposed to do my stream with all this bullshit in the chat? Did he put out something today to go out there and just be a dumbass? Like, I apologize to anybody that's watching this on the rerun. Um, yeah, I'm trying to focus on the stream, but I can't be having my chat just blow up the way that it's blowing up right now. I don't understand what the fuck is going on. Crazy. I don't understand what the issue is, but crazy. I yeah, is what it is. Absolute low life scumbag pieces of shit out there just doing. Yeah, I don't even know what the fuck it is. I'm so fucking lost. Whatever. I'll try to deal with it as I go. Um yeah. Hassan Piker seems like a complete asshole to be doing shit like this. All right, let's not waste too much more time. God damn, that was insane. I'll try to continue. Uh, Grim Reaper's like, at least Tajik Bay. Yeah, you know what? I'll probably turning off the live chat is probably not a bad idea, but we'll see. All right, I apologize, guys. All right, let's get back to the fucking show. Yeah, that's never happened before. That blew my mind. I just want to keep the chat involved. That's the whole point of this type of fucking stream, right? I want to go through every single matchup, see what people have to say about it, and then go back and forth. So, yeah, that was so weird. All right. All right, let's go to the first matchup. We got Jordan Levitt against Claudio Poiles. Minus 200 on Levitt and plus 170 on Poiles. Sorry, let me just get some water. Now, I don't completely understand the reason why everybody's so high on Jordan Levitt in this spot. Not just in this spot, just in general, right? I feel as though people are so enthralled um, with Jordan Levitt's undefeated record. You know, his big win over Matt Wyman last time around was obviously very impressive. And then submitting Luke Flores the way that he did. But the guy is very, very um, one-dimensional. Like his striking is non-existent. I don't understand why people are so high on him. Claudio Poiles, last time I checked, I believe in 2018, he did have a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, so I'm hoping by now it's probably a black belt, which leads me to believe that he should be able to deal with whatever grapple-heavy approach that Jordan Levitt's going to be coming with here. Levitt does have a little bit of a wrestling background, but it doesn't seem, it doesn't seem like is something that's huge for him, right? There's a lot of times where he's just pulling guard or scooting on his butt trying to get his opponents, and they're just trying to get him down that way. But he seems very one-dimensional. Obviously, the kid's still young, so he could be making improvements. Don't get me wrong, but Claudio Poiles seems to be much more experienced than him, and at least has a lot more tools. He's a great jiu-jitsu player when he was on the Ultimate Fighter back in the day, back in 2016, I think it was. He was only 20 years old. The guy was super young, so I don't completely understand the love against him, or the hate against him, I should say. The Martin Bravo's loss was bad. Felipe Silva, obviously that one, he was getting absolutely pummeled in that fight, and then came back in the third round and pulled out that knee bar. And then the Marcos Mariano fight had a lot of success with his takedowns and his grapple heavy approach, but wasn't able to get Mariano out of there. Yeah, I think he's going to be able to defend whatever Jordan Levitt throws at him, wrestling wise, grappling wise. And then when this fight stays on the feet, I think that Poiles is going to be able to kind of eat him up there. I just don't think it's going to be even at all. I see my guy Dan C saying over there, saying Levitt is saying he's working on his striking, but how much can he truly make an improvement? From what we've been seeing from him, it just doesn't happen over the night. It doesn't happen from one training camp or the two training camps to the next one. I think Claudio Poiles has him completely covered here. Not to mention, Poiles has actually changed his training camp over there to Sanford MMA now, which you guys know I'm very high on, especially with the amount of training partners that they're able to get to. I feel like he's going to be ready to go with whatever Jordan Levitt brings his way. So, yeah, I think I'm going with Poiles here, and I think he can actually finish him probably in the second or third round. But I don't understand the overwhelming love for Levitt. It doesn't make any sense to me. Good grappler, don't get me wrong, but he's one-dimensional. He's very much one-dimensional. So people need to be very aware of just parlaying Levitt right off the bat. Considering that he's a minus 200 favorite, people that might not be reading or looking into the fights as deeply, they'll actually be able to see that Levitt is one-dimensional, and Poiles should have him covered. So, yeah, I'm going Poiles here, and I'm going to go with him to win probably by late TKO here. I think he could absolutely beat up Levitt and make it a rough night for him. So, yeah, I'm going Poiles here to pull off the upset. Bjorn TV4 saying he needs some mods. Yeah, I got it. I think it's about time that I finally get some mods in here. I got some usuals here that I feel like I can trust, but we'll see. BP is saying Poiles is a flake and doesn't wear damage good. The guy got dropped with a few punches, came back a quitter. You're saying Poiles is a quitter? How is Poiles a quitter? Did you not see his fight with Felipe Silva, man? That is not a quitter at all. David Dean is Levitt a hype job? That is the question. I do think he is a hype job, man. I think a lot of people are just jumping on him because he does his dance after his wins and all that type of shit, and he has a bit of character and stuff. People want to back him. Undefeated as well, so that's another thing to take into consideration. But yeah, I don't think that the line should be this one. This is crazy. My guy Tajik Bait back in the chat. Appreciate you stopping by. Joseph McBride, I don't think he's a hype train. I don't know many that rate him that much. Levitt is solid, but not an amazing fighter. I agree. Levitt has insane temperature. Watch his old and amateur fights. I get that people hope after the Wyman slam KO, but he's a legit prospect mainly because he hasn't lost. He's rightfully the fave. I don't know if he should be the favorite, to be honest, but I feel like this should be much closer aligned. Again, I do believe that is very much one-dimensional, so we'll see. Also, to say that Poiles has miles ahead of striking is shocking. Striking is 50-50. Striking is not 50-50 here. I feel like his striking is much, much better than what we've seen from Jordan Levitt, especially in the fights where we actually see him strike and not just, fucking roll around and try to get these guys to the ground. SD Crusader saying Tajik Bay for mod. He's in the running. I'll say that. David Dean saying starting the night bold with a dog plus 170. There's at least 5 underdogs that I'm picking here. So let's see. Kane Gomes saying cheers from Ottawa. I appreciate you stopping by, brother. I'm actually going out to a cottage this weekend, just close to Ottawa, up there in Balderson or something it's called. But yeah, I'll be heading up there for the weekend. Joseph McBride, am I going to be watching The Ultimate Fighter? I'm not going to be watching it, obviously, because I'll be doing my stream right now, but I will watch it afterwards. We'll see. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got Sean Woodson against Yusuf Zalal, minus 190 on Woodson, plus 165 on Zalal. Now, initially, I thought that this was the line was off as well. I thought this was another spot where the underdog could go out there and do some work. And Zalal could make this a close fight, but I do think that ultimately it's going to come down to the boxing experience of Woodson here, who's going to be able to kind of keep Zalal on the outside, get his striking off, use that beautiful jab of his. And I truly thought that Zalal had a better wrestling game than what he had shown in the Sung Woo Choi fight, which is why I actually, I didn't bet him in that Choi fight, but I did think that he'd be able to ground Choi and kind of nullify the Muay Thai experience that Choi had, but he was unable to do so, hence why he picked up an L there, especially as a minus 245 favorite. With Sean Woodson, long, rangy dude, 6'2" for the 145-pound division, is a very, very lanky frame, but he uses it very well, and I'm not completely ready to write him off after that Julian Rosa fight, especially considering that Julian Rosa, he's a wily veteran himself, so we can't really, write off Julian Rosa so easily, and, Woodson being on minus 500 favorite in that fight was absolutely crazy in my mind. I just didn't believe he should deserve to be that big of a favorite, especially that young in his MMA career. But here against Yusuf Zalal, I think that Woodson, even though he's been taken down in his last 3 fights, he does a good job of getting back to his feet and nullifying the amount of control time, or I should say effective control time from his opponents, because it was Kyle Bochniak 2 fights ago who landed a couple of takedowns, but every single time Sean Woodson was able to get back to his feet. But Kyle Bochniak was still able to accrue close to 5 minutes of control time in that 15-minute fight. The control time came up against the cage where he was struggling to get Woodson down. But while he was trying to get Woodson down, Woodson was dealing damage while defending the takedowns and ultimately winning those moments that even though Kyle Bochniak was actually getting control time there. So, yeah, I do like Woodson. I think he shows good work in terms of, not settling for bottom and not settling with getting taken down. He does a good job of just, getting back to his feet. And I think Julian Rosa beat him because he had a great pressure style. He was able to go out there and, stay in Woodson's face and really put the pressure on him. And I don't think that's Zalal's game. Zalal, his grappling really did bail him out a lot in the Austin Lingo, Jordan Griffin, and Peter Barrett fights. But he has serviceable striking too. But I think he's going to be at a striking disadvantage here against Sean Woodson, who's just so clean and crisp on the feet with his boxing approach. So I like Woodson here. I did want to pick Zalal before the running the tape and running the research, but after doing the work and all that stuff, I think Woodson will come out victorious here. And that's weird as hell to say, right? Like Yusuf Zalal made his UFC debut at UFC 248 back in February of 2020 and rattled off 3 straight victories pretty quickly. And now he's probably going to find himself on a 3 fight losing streak, all within the span of 16 months. Crazy how quickly the sport can pass you by. But I'm not saying Zalal is completely done. The kid's only 24 years old still, and he's with a solid training camp too. I think that there's a lot of solid work that Woodson can do here, and I just don't think that Zalal is going to be able to overcome it. Especially having to deal with the long, rangy boxing approach that Woodson's going to bring here. So I'm going to go with Woodson, and I'm going to take him to win this fight via decision. And yeah, I did see that there were a ton of dislikes on the video, as somebody just pointed out. Yeah, Stefan was saying we had a raid earlier with guys just coming in and absolutely torching up the live stream. So if you guys are in the chat, please do hit that like so we can kind of balance that shit out and get rid of those trolls that were in here at the beginning of the stream. So please do that. Mixed Partial Fraud, it's also great to see you live again, MMALOTN. It's been a minute. Live videos are the best for sure. Yeah, we had that 1 week off. I wanted to take the week off. I tried doing a Locky late night, but that didn't end up coming to fruition. Maybe I'll do that in the next day or so, just to give you guys a little bit more content. But we're back on our grind. 4 straight weeks of UFC events, and we back doing it as usual. Ryan Grant loves Zalal, but I have to fade him here. I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. Frank Chaudin, anybody know what channel Tough is on? It's on ESPN Plus in the States, and if you're in Canada, it's actually going to be on Fight Pass. So at 9 p.m. Eastern, it's going to be available on Fight Pass. David Dean is asking, is Woodson going to have James Cross in his corner? He should. I believe he's still working with him. So yeah, I do like that's another aspect of this fight that I like is the work that Krause is doing with Woodson. Andrew Marchenko, I still can't wrap my head around how Woodson lost to a Rosa. Rosa's again, he's a veteran, man. You put that pressure on Woodson, and Woodson broke, and I don't think that Zalal is capable of putting that type of pressure on him too. Average Joe, I like Zalal by decision on plus money. I think he can take Sean down. He might be able to take him down, but I just don't think he'll be able to keep him down, and that's where the issue lies. I don't think he has great top pressure, especially against a guy who does not settle at all at bottom. Every time somebody takes Woodson down, Woodson springs right back to his feet. He does not settle. He does not allow his opponent to establish that top pressure. That boy B, Tapori, and Wu Choi aren't bums. The dog barks and barks loud here. Interesting. Does Zalal have the strength or takedown speed to get Woodson down? I think he can get him down. It's just I don't think he'll be able to hold him down, and that's the issue here. Justin Villegas, he needs to show underdogs and beers, talks underdogs and what beer to drink after what that fight. I say Zalal go good with New Zealand apple ale. I wish I was a bit much more of a drinker so that I could actually do that, but I am not. Frank Chaudin, sorry, SD Crusader. Woodson has not impressed me at all, and Zalal is finally not taking a fight on short notice. I've got to ride with the dog here. I don't hate the love that Zalal is getting, don't get me wrong, but I do think that Woodson actually works pretty well here. 7-inch reach disadvantage is all you need to see here. And Woodson uses it pretty well too. That boy B, rare to get a fighter of Zalal's talent against a fighter as undaunting as Woodson at these odds. I disagree that he's undaunting. I think he's very well versed, especially in the striking realm. I feel for Zalal. He's a very solid fighter, but I agree he's probably going to be on a 3-fight losing streak. I hope UFC stick with him, giving him an easier matchup next time. I agree. The guy's done a ton of favors for them, especially taking a bunch of fights on short notice. So yeah, hopefully they do keep him around, even if he ends up losing this weekend. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got Marina Maroz against Manon Fiorot. We got minus 160 on the French woman, and we got plus 140 on the Ukrainian Marina Maroz. Maroz on a 2-fight winning streak, especially being down there at ATT. It seems to be truly helping her game out. But the one thing that seems to be evident as to why she's winning these fights is she's starting to drag these fights to the ground and having a lot of success with it. Sabina Mazo, we've seen in her last couple of fights, she really does struggle when fighters come with that grapple-heavy approach. And even Mario Bueno Silva, Maroz did a good job of kind of striking with her for the first 2 rounds. And then taking her down in the latter half of those first 2 rounds and securing those rounds. But Bueno Silva was really coming on in that third round. And I truly think that if Bueno Silva was kind of going first in her combinations and her strikes like she did in that third round, she probably could have stolen at least one of the first 2 rounds. And that's where I think that Manon Fiorot kind of separates herself from what Bueno Silva brought to the table. Now, I'd feel much more confident in Fiorot here, but the one thing that gives me a little bit of pause is that Maroz has solid volume and has solid output. She's always throwing strikes. She's always remaining active, and it's usually an issue for her opponents in terms of trying to keep up with her. The issue here with Maroz fighting Fiorot is that Fiorot has great power, great, calculated timing. She's very patient in her approach, but when she does land, she lands with a lot of ferocity and a lot of impact, and I think that could ultimately sway the judges if this fight does end up going 15 minutes, as I do expect it to. I think Fiorot, even though she's 31 years old, she has a ton of potential to actually even burst into the top 10 of this division, given the skill set that she has. She came into MMA as purely a kickboxer, Muay Thai fighter, but she's quickly started to put her game together, showing off that she can, stuff takedowns, land takedowns. Even when she gets taken down, she can get back to her feet. She's showing a lot of improvements for sure, and I think she's only going to get better as her career starts to go on. Even her one loss, right? It was to Leah McCourt, who now fights for Bellator, who just pulled off a victory a couple weeks ago. McCourt was very successful in getting her down, but Fiorot did a good job of getting back to her feet and then dishing out the damage whenever they were in that vertical position. Now, here with Maroz, again, I think that Fiorot will be very successful in terms of, landing the power shots, landing the big shots. That's going to cause the judges to kind of kind of score it for her, but it is just the volume of Maroz that does worry me ever so slightly in case Fiorot, doesn't land the most impactful shots. But again, I do think she will land the bigger and more powerful strikes, which should sway the judges her way. If you guys see, obviously in her last 5 fights, she's been able to knock out 4 out of her last 5 opponents. So she is a big, heavy hitter. She has a lot of power in her hands, but Maroz is quite durable, as we saw in that Bueno Silva fight. Even though her cardio seemed to be failing her and Bueno Silva was really marching her down and stalking her, Maroz was able to kind of stay in that fight and actually see the judges' scorecards and eventually get her hand raised, after winning those first 2 rounds. Ultimately, I will go with Fiorot. I think that she will win this fight probably by decision, and I think she has a pretty bright future if she's able to really string some wins together, and I think she'll burst into the top 10 relatively easily here. Will she be able to compete against Valentina Shevchenko? That remains to be seen, right? We got to see how she continues to pan out, how she stuffs takedowns, how she deals with the grapple heavy approach, which I think she'll be getting here from Maroz after Maroz, dilly-dallies on the feet long enough to try to lull Fiorot into a sense of comfort that this is going to be a striking fight. And that's exactly what she did against Bueno Silva. I expect her to do the same thing here against Fiorot, but I don't think she'll be as successful as she was with Bueno Silva. So once again, I'll go at Fiorot, and I'm going to take her to win this fight by decision. But I really like the girl. I think she has a ton of potential, and I can't wait to see how she does, especially in my opinion, the toughest test that she's had to date. Maroz absolutely is on another level compared to Victoria Leonardo and the rest of the women that Fiorot was fighting on the regional scene. And now this is the time for Fiorot to go out there and showcase that she deserves to be in the UFC, and that she is definitely a top 10 fighter in this flyweight division. Ryan Grant, love Fiorot here. Usually skeptical to take newer prospects taking a step up in competition, but I love the complete game from Fiorot. I agree. Maroz may throw more, but Fiorot will land bigger shots and bigger moments. I agree. Joseph McBride, Fiorot is a play for me here. I have 6 plays I like, but I think she wins in a competitive fight. Yeah, right there with you. MMA Kappa NZ saying, loved breaking this fight down on that tape index. Got Fiorot round 3 or decision as the bet. I see it being like Angela Hill versus Maroz, but Fiorot much being bigger, more power, and more tools than Hill. Frank Jodon, Maroz strikes into empty space a lot. I don't think that's going to work here. I agree. Marina, the shadow box, and Maroz, exactly. Time is not a line. Fiorot's MMA debut was a split decision loss to Leah McCourt, who just missed weight at 145 pounds, and she held her own in the grappling. I think she's got the better skills everywhere. I'm not ready to say that she has the better skills everywhere here in the Maroz fight. I do want to see how the grappling sequences play out, as I do believe that should help us answer a lot of questions about Fiorot, but I do feel good about it, and I do think she'll come out with her hand raised. Mixed martial arts is saying I stay away from these types of fights because you never know what the ladies, especially the prelim ladies. I don't believe in that women's MMA narrative that a lot of people want to throw out there. I think it's just as like betting on Woodson versus Zalal or any other matchup out there. I do think that if you perceive an edge, take advantage of it. And I feel like Fiorot has a bit of an edge here that we can take advantage of. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got Alan Patrick going up against Mason Jones. Heavy chalk here on Mason Jones, minus 290. The return on Alan Patrick is plus 245. Pretty easy to break this fight down. Very straightforward. Alan Patrick, 37 years old now, but he has actually switched it up. He mainly used to train over that Fusion XL with Rodolfo Vieira and Jacare, Mike Perry and those guys, Alex Nicholson, another guy that used to be out of there. Not Will Smith. Who's the guy that the Fresh Prince, whatever his fucking name is, Phil Rowe, another guy that he used to train with. But Alan Patrick is now actually over there at Sanford MMA. He's trying to get a career resurgence going and try to change his fortune, especially after 2 straight losses. Now, a third one could potentially mean the end of his UFC career. So he's really going to need to get it going. But we only really see one approach from Alan Patrick, which is try to spam the takedowns, try to get you to the ground, grind you out, and get his hand raised via judge's decision, or try to find that submission and eventually try to tap you out. But I think he's going to struggle here against Mason Jones. Mason Jones, black belt in judo, brown belt in BJJ, can hold his own in the grappling realm. Even if he does get taken down, he does a good job in terms of getting back to his feet. I don't think he's going to be in too much trouble here with Patrick. And I think Jones will be able to keep this fight vertical and kind of really put the hurting on him with the striking and his boxing approach. He has heavy hands. He has a ton of knockouts on his record, and he does a lot of good work when he's actually, letting his hands go, just as we saw in the Mike Davis fight. Had a ton of success in that fight, fight of the year candidate between Davis and Jones that night. But I do think that Jones has a bright future. He did come over from Cage Warriors as the champ in the lightweight and the welterweight divisions. Ultimately, though, he did not end up defending those, as he did get signed to the UFC after winning both of those titles. It would have been nice to see him actually defend those titles before coming to the UFC. But when you have 2 shiny belts over your shoulders, it definitely does speak to the UFC, and they want to bring you over as soon as possible. Alan Patrick, his striking style is more so one and done. He wants to kind of close the distance and really, try to make you work that way. It's not impressive. That's all I'm going to say. I think he's going to have a lot of trouble here dealing with Mason Jones. So ultimately, I'm going to go with Mason Jones. I think he's going to win this fight probably by finishing the second or third round once Patrick starts to slow down. I think Jones has a bright future. I think he has a lot of good work for him in terms of, heavy power in his hands and obviously the grappling skills that he has. But his ability to keep the fight vertical is going to be his ultimate saving grace here. And I think he ultimately knocks out Alan Patrick probably in the second round of this fight. I apologize, guys. My nose is just leaking for some reason right now, and I cannot, for the life of me, seem to get a hold of it. So let me see if I can get some Kleenexes delivered to me by Mrs. Locke. All right. Let's see what the chat is saying here. Justin Villegas does no wins to Mazzo and Silva decision loss. Hill Esparza scare anyone? It does not scare me. I agree. Mixed martial arts. Ladies just aren't finishers on the prelims. The underdog new to the organization is more often the way better fighter compared to the vet. It's just confusing all around. The skill levels are, again, every skill levels are vastly different. It's just it's all over the place. Again, every fight is a different stylistic matchup. It could play out differently. Yeah. This fight, Mason Jones, in my opinion, and agree on finish. Yeah, I agree. He's saying stop doing the coke. I do not do the coke. That is one drug I will not touch. Absolutely not. Tata is saying Jones is lock on the card. No, he is actually not my lock on the card, but I do feel very confident in him too. So I do think he is actually a good spot here. He's a good parlay spot. If you're looking for a parlay of both spots, I don't think you can I don't think you can do much worse than Jones, as there are a couple of the shadier spots in that minus 250, minus 300 range that you guys will hear from me as we continue through this card. So let's continue on. We got Francisco Trinaldo versus Muslim Salikhov, minus 255 for Salikhov, plus 215 for Masaranduba. A fight that I feel like the line is a little bit too wide here. I do like me some Francisco Trinaldo, as I do believe this fight is going to play out pretty closely. Now, I do think that there's a severe Russian tax here on Salikhov's name, right? If his name was Alex White or Craig Jones or something like that, again, not saying specifically Alex White or Craig Jones specifically, but no, or say, let's just say Joe Smith. If his name is Joe Smith, I highly doubt he's a minus 255 favorite here. Watch his fights, man. When he's not knocking dudes out like Ricky Rennie and Nardine Taleb, the guy is struggling. The Laureano Storapoli fight, highly inactive other than that second round where he was able to hurt Storapoli. And then the Zaleski dos Santos fight, I thought he lost that fight. That was in my opinion, pretty clear fight for Zaleski, but Salikhov gets his hand raised that night. He's a low volume fighter. He relies too much on small moments to produce big results, and when those don't happen, the fight gets too close, just like the Zaleski fight. Trinaldo is also a kind of a low output fighter, but he does do his fair share of damage and stalking his opponents and kind of controlling the cage, like he did against John McDessie and even in the Bobby Green fights. But the Jay Herbert fight, I will say that he was in trouble in some of those spots. He hurt Herbert a couple times, obviously ultimately knocking him out in the third round, but Herbert did hurt Trinaldo a bunch more. But the difference here between Herbert and Salikhov is that Herbert, he actually throws. He has a lot more volume than what Salikhov brings to the table. So he does open up more opportunities for him to potentially hurt Trinaldo, whereas Muslim Salikhov just waits a little bit too much, right? He throws a lot of spinning shit, but again, it's very low volume, very low percentage stuff. And this fight should not be as wide of the odds indicate, right? People want to look at the 42 years old that Francisco Trinaldo has, but the guy's on a 3-fight winning streak. You can't deny him in that aspect. Salikhov, he's actually going to be 37 a couple days after this fight, so he's no young spry chicken either. This fight's going to be very close, especially it's going to go to the judges' scorecards, which I fully believe it will. And I'd rather be holding that plus 215 ticket rather than that minus 255 ticket in a fight that I believe is going to be very close. So ultimately, we'll be picking Trinaldo here to win the decision. But yeah, don't get caught up in the Russian hype here. Salikhov is a decent fighter, but I think that his style of fighting is just a little too low percentage. And, I don't think he really does much to truly separate himself from his opponents. I think he got a luck of a draw last time around against Zaleski. The Starapoli fight, okay, he won that fight, but again, very inactive in that fight. Knocks out Nordine Taleb, knocks out Ricky Rennie, both guys that Ricky Rennie, I don't even believe he should have deserved to be in the UFC at that point. Not to mention, this guy got choked out by Alex Garcia, who's mainly just a striker. Garcia, obviously a good MMA fighter, don't get me wrong, but to get choked out by Garcia the way that he did, especially as a minus 220 favorite, red flags already. So I'm not touching Salikhov here. I might actually have a bet on Trinaldo as a dog play, but I do think he has a ton of value here, especially in a fight that I expect to go 15 minutes, and I expect to be very close. Low volume from both sides, as we always expect from these guys, and I'd rather be taking the plus 215 favorite rather than the minus 255 favorite here. So I like Trinaldo, and I will take him to win by decision. Joseph McBride, what's wrong with the guys named Joe? You know what I mean. You know what I mean, Joseph. Trinaldo moving up a weight class is going to be tough, but I do like him in general. Yeah, good point here. Again, Trinaldo going up to welterweight as well. As we do remember, he missed weight about by 4 pounds against Jay Herbert. So I'm glad that he's going up to 170 pounds. Not to mention, he's also over there at ATT too. So I can't wait to see what kind of wrinkles they're able to add to his game. Again, like I said with Alain Patrick in the last breakdown, I don't think that they're going to truly be able to, reignite a fire under Patrick, especially with him being 37 years old. Probably won't be able to do the same here with the 42-year-old Trinaldo over there at American Top Team, but it is a good way for him to get some solid training partners and especially fight a guy like Muslim Salikhov. So yeah, I like Trinaldo here. I like that he's moving up in weight. Will be at a 2-inch height disadvantage. Same reach. The guy is, I still think he's explosive. Still think he has power. And I still think he can make this fight very, very close. Mixed martial arts, Francisco Trinaldo. Always love saying that name. I love saying Masaranduba as well. His nickname is always great. Andrew Marchenko saying, I don't recall Trinaldo ever fighting at 170 pounds. That is correct. He's going up in weight here. I think that's a good thing for him now, especially at 42 years old. And it seems like he was really struggling to make the weight in his last couple of fights. So by all means, go up in weight if you need to. Sometimes not cutting weight means less work on cardio for the vets. Good. Yeah, good point there. Ryan Grant, Salikhov is just a name hype train. Agree on the line being a little bit too wide. I agree. Mixed pressure for us. They're both old, but Trinaldo actually throws. Yeah, exactly. Elizeu Zaleski should have got that decision. He always gets screwed on split decisions. Yep, right there. My guy Brady is in the chat. DFS by the numbers. Thank you for stopping by. ST Crusader Trinaldo should be on a 5-fight win streak too. Yeah, exactly. It might even be 6, right? I think he had a win before that Evan Dunham fight too. The Alexander Hernandez fight, very close fight. Probably should have gone Trinaldo's way. Seems like the wife is actually slacking a little bit in terms of getting back to me to get me what I need. So I will just give her a ring and see if that wakes her up here. Mixed pressure for us. Trinaldo whipping Bobby Green was impressive a few fights back. Exactly. I think he's going to have a lot more success than people are expecting him to. And yeah, I think that this is a great value spot if you guys are looking for a big underdog to hopefully cash on. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got Ilir Latifi going up against Tanner Bozer. Minus 200 on Bozer, plus 170 on Latifi. Another line I think is a little bit too wide, but ultimately I will be siding with the favorite here and Tanner Bozer. But this fight's a tricky one, right? You got Tanner Bozer. We know his style. He likes to strike. He likes to move. He likes to leg kick. Sometimes lacks on the volume like he did in the Andrei Arlovski fight. I wish we saw a little bit more urgency from him, but he played it a little bit too lackadaisical. Andrei Arlovski had the bigger moments, even though that there weren't that many big moments in that fight. Arlovski did actually get it done with there. So good win for Arlovski, not a good look for Bozer. He needs a little bit more oomph. I mean, he can't be fighting like his training partner, KB Buller, and letting a fight pass him by anymore. So hopefully he can get back on his leg kicks and he can get things going here against Ilir Latifi. Now, the big question mark here is Latifi has a grappling advantage. I think he will be the better wrestler in the spot, but we just haven't seen Tanner Bozer truly push in that realm in a long, long time. I think the last time we've actually seen him push in the grappling realm was against Denis Smolderov from 4 or 5 years ago at this point in time. And I think that's going to cause, question marks here. If Latifi gets him down and Bozer truly hasn't been working on his ground game or, replicates what we saw from the last time he had to deal with the grappler, it's not a good look. Latifi could go out there and actually grind this fight out. My question marks are Latifi seems to have a suspect gas tank when things aren't going his way. And if Bozer is able to stuff a couple takedowns, stay on his bicycle and keep going around, landing the leg kicks and staying away from the grapple heavy approach of Latifi, he could absolutely go out there and, have a good performance against Latifi. I will ultimately pick Bozer to win this fight by decision, but the question marks surrounding the grappling of Bozer just doesn't make me want to bet a minus 200 here and Tanner Bozer. I like Bozer here. I think he'll outstrike Latifi, but that wrestling approach from Latifi is a huge red flag for me, especially if I'm looking to back Tanner Bozer. So once again, I'll go with Bozer, but this fight is a complete pass for me. I'm not mad at anybody that goes out there and bets Latifi because I do think you're getting some decent value here, especially that we don't have any question or answers in regards to the grappling questions of Tanner Bozer, and Latifi could absolutely exploit that. So I'll go Bozer, but I do think Latifi is very live here. Daniel K saying dog of the night, Latifi by wrestling. See exactly what I mean. I completely understand it, but I get it. I absolutely get it. Ryan Grant, sketchy heavyweight fight for me, too unpredictable with the big boys. Yeah, it's sketchy. I don't want to lay the chalk on Bozer, but I do think he wins. MMA Kappa and Z taking a stab on the brick. Shit house Latifi via decision. Take the first few rounds via top control and a close third. Tanner talking about being more aggressive. We'll see him taken down easier. Possibly. Like Latifi had a lot of success with his grappling against Derek Lewis, especially in that second round, but he just let up Derek Lewis a little bit too early in that third round and took a little bit of a shit kicking, which is why he lost that fight. That boy B, we've seen age be a problem as of late. 3 straight losses at 37 years old. Bozer may win in devastating fashion. Possibly. Latifi did get knocked out 2 fights ago, but I don't think that Bozer is a huge heavy hitter, even though he has knockout victories over Rafael Pessoa, which was due to a punch to the eyeball and that eye socket. So I don't call it a clean knockout. But the Philippe Lins one, he definitely knocked him out there. That was a beautiful combination that he was able to land in that fight. I don't think Bozer's a big power puncher, so I don't think he'll knock out Latifi here. But let's just see a little bit more aggressive or assertiveness from him than what we saw in the Arlovsky fight. So once again, I'll go Bozer. I'll go Bozer by decision. George Menexopoulos is saying Bozer may win, but definitely not in devastating fashion. I agree. Danny K, look at Latifi's fighting competition too. Lots of top fighters and sub OSP. Yep, I agree. Andrew Marchenko, I didn't watch any ACB fights. Has any restaurant that actually Chan Bozer's takedown defense? Yeah, there was a guy named Smolderov that seemed to take that grapple heavy approach, and Bozer didn't really have much of an answer for him in that fight in terms of getting back to his feet or even stuffing the takedown. So that's a big red flag for me. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got Montana De La Rosa going up against Ariane Lipski, minus 260 heavy chalk on De La Rosa here, plus 220 on Lipski. And I'm on De La Rosa pretty heavy here. I do think that she has a very significant wrestling and grappling advantage here. Even though Lipski was able to pull off that weird weird knee bar against Luana Carolina 2 fights ago, I just don't think that she'll be able to do the same thing here against De La Rosa. I do think that De La Rosa is still getting comfortable over there at Team Elevation in Denver, Colorado, but she did have some very tough fights last time around against, in my opinion, much better strikers and more effective strikers in Mayra Bueno Silva and Viviane Araújo. I do like that De La Rosa was still able to complete takedowns in the second and third round against Bueno Silva, and that fight did end up going to a draw. But I do think that she'll have very little resistance in terms of taking down Lipski here. Now, I know Lipski has changed training camps. She's over there at an American Top Team as well, but I don't think they'll be able to do much work for her in terms of being able to, shore up her takedown defense to the point that she'll be able to keep this fight on the feet for the majority of 15 minutes and outstrike De La Rosa. Lipski is a complete or a huge bust in terms of what we expected for her when she originally came over from KSW. Everybody expected her to go out there and absolutely dust her opponents, hence why she was a minus 255 favorite to Joanne Calderwood, as well as a minus 255 favorite to Molly McCann, and she ended up dropping both of those fights. So not a good look from her there. She did go out there and beat Isabella de Padua, but if you guys remember, that was the fight where de Padua took the fight on literally the day before, like 24 hours, 36 hours, nor she took the fight. And de Padua was landing takedowns, pretty easily in that fight. Luckily for Lipski, de Padua wasn't ready to be fighting on that at that point in time. So, her cardio or conditioning, all that stuff wasn't on point. And Lipski did end up having some success, obviously getting her hand raised by decision. With the Luana Carolina fight, again, I don't think that highly of Carolina. And she was able to pull off the knee bar there. And then lastly, with the Shevchenko fight, that's where we saw, the grappling deficiencies of Lipski come to fruition. De La Rosa, I think she's a great wrestler. I think she does a really good job in terms of getting her opponents down when she does have a huge grappling advantage, just as I believe she'll have here. And I think there will be many of opportunities for her to actually lock up a submission of some sort and maybe, get a finish here in this fight against Lipski. But I think that De La Rosa has great durability, as she's shown in her last 2 fights against much more aggressive and better strikers in Araújo and Bueno Silva. And Lipski, again, I don't think the change to American Top Team is going to help her too much, especially when she's going to be getting taken down time and time again. Lipski might be able to stuff the first couple of takedowns, but I think eventually we'll see De La Rosa actually, continue to spam the takedowns, get the takedowns, and her striking herself is, coming around. It's not completely as bad as it used to be back in the day, and she is making some improvements there. So that is, reassuring, especially if you're backing De La Rosa here. But I think that this is probably one of the biggest mismatches on the card, because I do think that that De La Rosa grounds this fight over and over again. So yeah, I do like De La Rosa. I think she wins either by submission or decision here, but I think she kind of wipes the floor with Lipski, who won't have much off of her back. Doesn't really have a good get-up game. Doesn't have a great jiu-jitsu game off of her back. And even her takedown defense is not that good. So I do like De La Rosa here, and I think she cruises pretty easily. All right. Let me see if I can get a hold of the wife again one more time, because my nose continues to leak. And it is not nice trying to talk to you guys while that is happening. All right, let's see what the chat is saying here as well. Daniel K is saying De La Rosa by sub. I could see that. Natch is saying I think Bozer can get the finish in later rounds. Latifi has no gas tank. That could happen. Joseph McGrath, I got De La Rosa minus 215 last week, and I love it here. She's value even at this line. I agree. Ryan Grant, Lipski moving into ATT is a good move, but anyone who makes Antonina look like a Khabib is an absolute fade. I agree. Or an auto fade, sorry. I agree. Nate Godwin is saying I like hot resilience. Hot Brazilian, I think you mean. Mixed partial forwards, Ariane Lipski and Stitch Albu, same person, same skill level. Pretty much. God, shout out to Stitch Albu, Alexandria Albu, I think her name was. Ryan Grant, Queen of Violence, more like Queen of Accepting Bottom Position, exactly. If she accepts bottom position easily, that's great news for me. Yeah, I think that's going to be quite easy. Give me 1 sec, guys. She came through with the Kleenex. Finally. Give me a sec, guys. All right. I apologize, guys. That was horrible to have to deal with as long as I dealt it with. All right. Let's see what the chat is saying, and then I'll move on to the next fight. Andrew Marchenko, De La Rosa are going to be very low owned on DK. Thoughts on being over on the ownership on her? I don't hate it, man. I think she has a really good chance of finishing Lipski, as one of my other followers had said, or one of the other viewers that actually said, I think she could find a submission here. And again, she's going to land takedowns and she's going to get a ton of control time. So I'd be surprised if she doesn't score anything less, or if she scores less than 100 points this weekend. Kappa NZ saying Mark De La Rosa may not have landed many punches in the outcome, but he sure is punching with MDR. She's fine when she does herself up. Yes, I agree. I agree. She is a low-key babe, I will say that. Mixed partial forwards, I meant bottom position in the bedroom, but man, same thing. So ultimately, I am going to take De La Rosa to win this fight, either by finish or by decision, submission or decision. But yeah, I think she Khabib's Lipski here quite easily. All right, next up, I apologize. There we go. Makwan Amirkhani versus Kamwala Kirk. Kamwala Kirk stepping in on short notice here. And this is a good spot. This is another spot that I'm looking at as a potential dog play, as I do think that there's a ton of recency, or not recency, but at least that there's that narrative of okay, we have a UFC veteran going up against a short notice opponent, UFC newcomer. The veteran in the UFC should be able to go out there and absolutely cruise. I disagree. Makwan Amirkhani, obviously great wrestler, good submission game too, but I think his striking skills leaves a little bit to be desired. Obviously, it's not as bad as fighters that we talked about earlier in this card, like Jordan Levitt or Alan Patrick. I do think he has some good striking chops, but I think that Kirk has some really good striking himself. I think he actually has a striking advantage in this fight. He has a black belt in jiu-jitsu, so I think that should kind of help him in those grappling situations when Makwan either does land takedowns or tries to sync up some chokes or something like that. I think Kirk should be good enough. Now, the one thing that I want to point to here is his loss to Billy Quarantillo on the Contender Series. I believe that was last year. Notice what odds he's at, or what his odds were going into that fight. I think that was a fight that the UFC was actually going to, or Mick Maynard, Sean Shelby, Dana White were going into thinking, okay, let's see what this Kamala Kirk guy has to bring to the table. And they were shocked. Yeah, he had a great first round. Seemed to have a decent second round as well. And then Billy Quarantillo started to take over as Billy Quarantillo normally does, and he starts to break dudes later in fights, to say as he did against Billy Q or against Camilla Kirk that night. But something that I just recently found out is that Camilla Kirk actually had a broken rib in that fight, and that did cause some issues there in terms of dealing with the approach that that Quarantillo was bringing to him. I apologize, guys. Give me 1 sec. I'll be right back. Just something to deal with real quick. I apologize. All right, I'm back. My body cannot cooperate with me today. This is insane. I take 1 week off of live streaming, and it's just like, hey, let's just do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's go to the washroom now. God, I apologize, guys. All right. So where was I? Kamala Kirk. I think he's the better striker here. Black belt in jiu-jitsu should help him stay out of trouble on the ground. Amirkhani, I also think, has some cardio issues. If Makwan is not able to ground this fight, I think he's going to have a lot of trouble. So I think that there is some good value on Kamala Kirk here. And again, I think the guy is good. Now, obviously, you got to take a little bit of grain of salt with his last two performances, considering he was a minus 385 and a minus 450 favorite. So yeah, he was supposed to go out there and absolutely sarge his opponents. But he starts his opponents. His striking looked great. His his improvements look good. Even in the Bruno Souza fight, a very close fight that could have gone either way. His striking looked good. Again, I think it looks much better than Makwan Amirkhani. Not to mention, let's add to the table that he's a fight ready guy, fight ready MMA. Obviously, home of Henry Cejudo and Bruno Silva, and I apologize. The Pitbull brothers, Tracy Cortez, Eric Anders is there now too. Santino DeFranco is absolutely doing massive mastery work down there. So, I think that Kirk is coming from a good gym. I think he's going to be ready to go. I think he's going to pull off the upset here. So I'll go with him to either win by late finish or by decision here. But I think he's a very solid fighter that's going to make this fight a lot closer than people are expecting. So don't just go out there and parlay Makwan just, blindly because he's taken on a UFC newcomer. I think this UFC newcomer has a ton of bark and a ton of bite. And I think people are going to be surprised once this fight actually goes down. All right. Chris, music, UFC, MUFC, HK are saying Coke runs. Definitely not. I have to, or had to go deal with some issues. Over 1.5, Daniel K. Not a bad look. Is that actually what it's set at? Because the last time I looked at the lines for this, the props actually weren't out. And they're still not out. They are still not out. Chris is saying Makwan will smoke him. RNC. I disagree. Danny Lopez. Tough debutant to back here. I think he's a solid talent, man. I think he's very good. Mr. Fernandez seems to be a much better wrestler. Yes, that's where I think that Makwan has the advantage. I think he's the better wrestler, but I just don't think that his grappling, his jiu-jitsu is going to be that much better than Kamwala's. So I think he's going to have some trouble in terms of locking up a submission or at least trying to, garner enough control time to be able to pull off the victory here. So I'm going with Kamwala. Daniel K saying that he saw the over 1.5 at -145. I think that's a great line. I think that's an absolutely great line. I'd probably hit that, to be honest. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got Antonio Hoyo going up against Tom Breeze. And remember when I was talking about that there's other -200, -250s that I'm a little bit skeptical about. It is Tom Breeze. I'm not picking a Hoyo to win here. Don't get me wrong. I think Tom Breeze wins this fight, but man, it's just so hard to trust him and his mental state and some of the gaffes that he's making inside the cage. Like, why are you pulling guard and guillotine immediately against Omari Akhmedov and then giving up that first round pretty much in total? So, big mistake from him there. Had a little bit of success early in that second round, but once he wasn't able to pull off the submission against Akhmedov, it seemed like he mentally gave up, and he was able to give up he gave up that arm triangle choke pretty easily. It didn't even seem like Akhmedov had to do much to set it up. He just threw it on there, and he was able to get the tap off of Tom Breeze. So not a good look from Tom Breeze, who seemed to have a very high ceiling before coming into the UFC. Now, I'll cut him some slack for that loss against Sean Strickland, as I believe that Sean Strickland is a very high-level fighter, but then he beats Daniel Kelly. Can't really rate him there, especially considering he is a -380 favorite in that fight. The Brendan Allen fight, another fight where he just looked like he broke. KB Buller, very easy fight for him. And then Akhmedov, like I just talked about, it seems like he broke and gave up in that fight too. Antonio Hoyo, though, it doesn't really blow your sheets or blow your hair back either. He's on a 2-fight losing skid where he's very underwhelming in both fights. Primarily a striker, very long-rangey guy, but he is pretty much matching Tom Breeze here in terms of metrics with that size and that reach. But I just don't think he's the better striker. I think that Tom gets his best work done when he is dialed in and calculated in the striking realm. But even if he wants to take this fight to the ground, I think he's going to have a lot of success there in terms of being successful with, slapping on some jiu-jitsu, some control time. But Andre Muniz was not able to get or tap a Hoyo, which is a little surprising considering how high level Muniz is, especially compared to Tom Breeze here. So if I was Tom Breeze, I'd mix in a couple takedowns here and there, but I truly try to center my game plan around that striking, as I do think he's going to have a massive advantage here in the technical striking realm. I think he's the much better striker. I think he has a ton of power in his hands, and as long as he doesn't have a gaff, he should be able to cruise in this fight. But I just can't trust Tom Breeze until he starts to distance himself from some of these, very poor mistakes that he's making in some of his fights, just like he did in the Omari Akhmedov fight. So it's going to be a couple wins that I'm going to need to see from Tom Breeze before I trust him with the actual big money here. But I do think he wins. I do think it was just by this decision here, and I do think he can pull off a submission if it comes to him. But I'm not going to get that crazy or ahead of myself. So I will pick Tom Breeze to win by decision. Let's see. Do want to remind you guys, as always, please do hit that like. That definitely helps. We did get wrecked by that troll job that we had at the beginning of this, so that's completely fucked up my my ratio there. But yeah, please do hit that like if you haven't already. All right, let's see what the chat is saying here. Ryan Grant like Breeze as a parlay piece. I wouldn't go too heavy on him, my brother, but I do think he wins this fight. So just be very wary in terms of a mental lapse that he might have, as he's had in 3 of his last 5 fights. Uncle Weezy is saying Breeze has 0 takedowns in the UFC 0 of 7. I think Ohoyo just has very questionable takedown defense, which is why I think he should be able to land a takedown or 2 in this fight if that's something he actually want to do. All right. Next fight, we got Gregory Rodriguez, once again, another short notice opponent stepping in here. He's going up against Duško Todorovic. We got minus 160 on Todorovic, plus 140 on Rodriguez, I should say. And it seems like the line has been coming down, right? He's actually plus 130 now. He was plus 160 earlier in the week, and now some money is coming in on Rodriguez. You guys remember Rodriguez for his loss to Jordan Williams, where he got knocked out in that first round in the Contender Series. And then since then, he's been able to bounce back with 2 straight knockout victories of his own. And both those victories have come within about 2 to 2.5 month span, especially leading into his UFC debut here. Seems like a decent striker, has some good power. I think that Todorovic will have the speed advantage here, though. Rodriguez was one of those guys that earlier in his career, he was training with Brazilian MMA legends like Anderson Silva and Lyoto Machida. And now most recently, he's been training over there at Sanford MMA, really getting his feet wet with a ton of, solid training partners, and obviously Henry Hooft heading him over there to truly round out his striking game. And it's very much working out for him, right? Against Josh Fremd, I believe the guy's name is, as well as Al Motavio, able to knock those guys out relatively quickly. So good work from him there. I think Duško is just a slightly better striker here. I think his striking defense, though, is a little bit of a concern, as we obviously found out last time around when he took his first ever professional MMA loss, getting knocked out by Punaholo Soriano. He just had his hands down. That's kind of his striking defense, is hands down, use your head movement to get out of the way. And, usually that's enough for him to actually get his hand raised, either get a knockout or even a decision victory that way. Another kind of part of Duško's game is to go out there and kind of clinch fuck his opponents up against the cage. I don't think he's going to be successful in doing so here against Gregory Rodriguez, who I do think is the more stronger fighter. And also, I think that Rodriguez would prefer to be in the clinch to potentially drag Duško to the ground and try to get that black belt in jiu-jitsu going and maybe lock up a submission of some sort against Duško. But I do think that Duško will have the speed and the power advantage here. Don't get me wrong. I think Rodriguez has some power in his hands too. And Duško obviously coming off a knockout loss 5 months ago, not a good look either. So this fight, all in all, is a pass for me. I can completely understand why people like Gregory Rodriguez in the spot. I do think that he's a live underdog, but I do think ultimately it's going to be Duško that gets his hand raised by knocking Gregory out probably in the first or second round. So I do like Duško, and I do think he still has a ton of potential. A lot of people were high on him. Obviously, minus 430 against Daquan Townsend, minus 265 against Teddy Ash, minus 165 against Punaholo Soriano. But let's not forget that type of energy that people were bringing before the Punaholo Soriano fight. I do think he is a good spot here. Personally, I just can't put my money on this fight, as I do think that Rodriguez has some bark as a dog. But I will take Todorovic, and I think he'll get the knockout probably in the second round in this fight. Very close fight, though. Very, very fun and close fight. I completely understand why the line is closing as much as it is, but I do think that Todorovic actually gets his hand raised still. Ryan Grant saying live dog for him here. I get it. Daniel K under 1.5 because both these guys got power and no chins. That could happen as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see a bit of a calculated approach here from Duško, especially considering he lost his first fight last time around. SD Crusader, Duško exposed last fight, methinks. I guess you won, it's got to be more than one fight for me to completely say that a guy has been exposed or, not as good as we truly think he is. And Rodriguez could potentially do that this weekend. Who knows? Uncle Weezy, no fight camp, a very short notice and a quick turnaround for Rodriguez. I like Dushko here. Yeah. Again, like I said, this is the third fight for Gregory within 2 to 2.5 months. Short notice training camp. Obviously, he's ready to go in terms of being in shape. But at a certain point, it's going to have a little bit of a wear and tear on your body to go out there, cut weight three times in less than 3 months, and then go out there and put your body through what it goes through. So that is a bit of a concern. So ultimately, I'll go with Dushko here, and I'll take him to win by second round KO. Next up, we got the fight that I'm most excited about. A very tough fight to break down. Santiago Ponzinibio versus Miguel Baeza. We got -125 on Baeza, +105 on Santiago Ponzinibio. Let's start off on the Ponzinibio side. Was coming off a knockout loss to Li Jingliang in a fight that he was making his long-awaited return after, I want to say 2 years off, maybe 3. Actually, let me confirm that number right now. He fought Neil Magny in November of 2018, and he came back in January of 2021. So we're talking about just over 2 years that he was absent from the cage. And yeah, it didn't work out for him, but we didn't get to see much in that fight either, right? The majority of that fight was just playing patty cake with leg kicks. That's all it was. And then once Santiago Ponzinibio started to, get loose a little bit and get his strikes off, or that one combination that he threw, he extended a little bit too much. Li Jingliang uncorks an absolute bomb on Santiago and then puts his lights out. So not a good look from Santiago there. There's just too many question marks regarding Santiago right now, because I think if he comes back looking like 75% or 80% of what he used to look like, he will make this a very competitive fight, and he should probably be favored in this fight against Miguel Baeza. But who knows what that layoff and all those injuries and infections and all that shit that he had to deal with during that layoff, how much it truly affected him, right? Somebody that comes to mind with somebody, that was dealing with something similar, not the same medical case, but still a layoff with a ton of issues that they had to deal with, was Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal comes back to a main event slot against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Even if he didn't have those health scares and all that shit that he had to go through, he probably will still lose that fight to Wonderboy, but he loses that fight. Then he comes back and loses his next fight again to Neil Magny. And after that, he puts out a statement saying, I just don't feel the same after what I had to go through. And maybe that could be the same thing here with Ponzinibio, dealing with whatever he had to deal with during his layoff. I just can't confidently put money on Ponzinibio in this spot, thinking that he should go out there and dust a young up-and-comer like Miguel Baeza, who's looked absolutely phenomenal over his last several fights. But like I said, if he looks anywhere close to what he used to look like, Ponzinibio should absolutely be the favorite in this fight and should go out there and spank a guy like Miguel Baeza. But I can't trust Ponzinibio to go out and do that. Maybe he's even more gun-shy after that Li Jingliang fight, right? Maybe he goes out there and he's just like, oh, fuck, I got knocked out last time. Let me just be careful. And it makes him too gun-shy. He doesn't throw enough volume, and Baeza just slowly chips away at him and wins a decision just off of being the slightly more active fighter. Who knows? I have no idea. Baeza, obviously, this is a huge step up in competition for him, going from Takashi Sato to Santiago Ponzinibio. There's a few fighters I think that you probably put in front of Baeza before you put him up against Ponzinibio. But again, we just don't know what kind of Ponzinibio we're getting. That's the issue here. Baeza obviously training out of MMA Masters, strong calf kicking game when he's able to get the correct stance from his opponent. We didn't see much of it in the Takashi Sato fight, but we saw a ton of it in the Hector Aldana fight, in the Matt Brown fight, and just as much as I expect him to go out there and throw it in this Ponzinibio fight. We did see some durability issues from Baeza in that Matt Brown fight, where Brown was able to hit him so hard he knocked the mouthpiece out of his mouth and rocked him, hurt him, really had him wobbly there. But Baeza got his wits about him pretty easily and was able to rock Matt Brown in the same fight and then finish him early in the second round. So we saw great awareness and recoverability from Miguel Baeza. Then he goes out there and cruises pretty much against Takashi Sato, never really in trouble. Eventually finished him with an arm triangle choke in that second round. Cashed that plus 1,400 prop ticket as well. That was an awesome little cash there too. But I think with him being the younger guy here, him being the more active fighter, having the momentum and fire behind him, I think he should go out there and do some work against Ponzinibio. I think he'll be the more active fighter. I think he'll be the one that stays more consistent with his striking, puts the output out there, and makes Ponzinibio kind of question himself a little bit more. I could be completely off on this prediction, but I do favor Baeza here ever so slightly. I just don't feel comfortable in terms of playing him, as I do believe that Ponzinibio, again, if he shows up close to what he used to look like, he can make this a very easy fight for himself. But I do believe in Baeza. I think he has a very high ceiling, and if he goes out there and continues to kind of distance himself from that Matt Brown rocking and stumbling that he had in that fight, he should start to really emerge as a possible threat in this welterweight division. So I'll go with Baeza ever so slightly. I do think he wins this fight probably by decision, but both guys have durability issues that need to be addressed and possibly, could be the downfall of them in this fight. But again, very close fight. I want nothing to do with the betting wise, but if you guys want a prediction from me, I will go with Baeza and I will pick him to win by by decision. And I will say this, the decision line on Baeza is plus 430 something. I think it's worth a little bit of a sprinkle, as I could see this fight go the full 50 minutes if that's what it ends up being. I could see a calculated approach from both guys. I think the under 1.5 is not a bad spot either, but it all depends on what kind of Ponzinibio we see. Is he going to be gun shy, or is he going to just go out there and be pissed off with his last performance and try to put it on Baeza immediately? No idea. I look forward to it, but I'm going to go with Baeza here. Not mad at anybody taking Ponzinibio, especially at plus odds, because I could see him pulling off the upset here. But I do like Baeza in the spot. Big J is saying I'm loading up on Baeza. I wouldn't load up on him, but I do think he wins. Don Q, Santiago looked very old and gunshot in his last fight. Yep. I will chalk that up to his layoff, though. I do think that was too long for him to be out of the cage. Maybe that had a little bit of an issue, too. So that is a bit of a problem. Ryan Grant saying I smell violence here might be a good in the distance prop. Could be. MMA Kappa and Z Jingliang's feints and distance control hand Bonzi stumped. Quick turn around in the cage before Jingliang. Give me Baeza to smash the calf and finish him with something nasty with the hands. Yeah, that calf kick is going to be absolute problems. Matt McKay is saying this is an even matchup. Yep. Matt K. I hear Baeza has superstar potential. Who is he? Should we watch his archives? He's great. I think he's a very good fighter. I don't know if he has superstar potential, but I do think he has a solid potential here to crack into the top 10, top 8 of the division if he truly starts to work on his or continue to progress the way that he's been progressing. Don Q, you should always watch the archives. Yes, I agree. Matt McKay, I know Ponzinibio only from him getting stopped most recently, but it was major hype train, wasn't it? It wasn't a hype train, man. Look at that run that he had going into the Li Jingliang fight. Nordine Taleb, Gunnar Nelson, Mike Perry, Neil Magny, very dominant performances in all of those fights. Not a hype train by any means of the word. He was going out there and walking the walk as well. But I think that layoff really did fuck with him. So I just don't know what kind of Ponzinibio we're going to see this time around. But ultimately, I will be going with Baeza. TJ Kill, always fade whoever returning inside 6 now of being KO cold. Good point. Matt's new. Yes, he is. It seems like he is very new. All right. Move on to the next fight. We got Roman Delese going up against Laureano Starapoli. Another spot where I do favor the underdog ever so slightly. Now, Roman Delese, we know what he brings to the table. He wants to knock your head off in the striking realm, or he wants to try to take your heel home, even though he hasn't had a heel hook victory in God knows how long. Poor fight IQ from the guy, right? Like there's so many instances where he has decent top control and then he just jumps back for a heel hook, gives up the position and allows his opponent to be on top and get some work in, which is why I think he lost that Trevin Giles fight. But I don't, I'm not sure how much his relationship with Eric Nixick over there at Extreme Couture is truly helping him, because it just doesn't seem like he's progressing the way that he should. Laureano Starapoli himself, I believe he did the majority of a training camp down there in Argentina. But I think that he's a solid fighter, man. He has some good striking. He's very unorthodox with his approach, very flashy with his striking, but he does have some good pace and pressure on him too, which I think could potentially cause Delese some issues. The thing that scares me here is that, one, we got Starapoli going up in weight, whereas Delese used to fight at light heavyweight, coming down in weight for the second time now. The Trevin Giles fight was his first fight down at 185. But I think that Roman will be the stronger fighter here. So if he chooses to take this fight to the ground, that could absolutely be away from him to win this fight by just overpowering Laureano Storapoli. But I just don't know how much we can trust him to do so and be effective enough with it to actually get the judges to give him the scorecards there. I think Storapoli will be more active on the feet and landing the better shots, staying on his bicycle, staying away from the heavy telegraph shots of Roman Delese on the feet. And I think it should cause Delese some issues. Originally, I was wondering why Laureano was actually going up in weight here. But then when you actually look at his stature and stuff, he's actually a pretty big welterweight. So going up is not too bad for him, especially coming in at that 6'1" frame. He's only giving up 1 inch in height here to Roman Delese. I like Storapoli here. Again, I think he can remain more active on the feet. I think he can cause Delese some issues, especially with his footwork and his unorthodox striking. And if Delese can't track him down, he's really going to have some trouble dealing with that striking style of Laureano Storapoli. So I do like Storapoli. I will say this, though. He is one of my least confident underdogs on the card, but I still do end up thinking he gets his hand raised by a decision in this spot. Again, Tim Means, Muslim Salikhov, slightly more difficult opponents than what Roman Delese brings to the table. And I don't think that Delese will be able to set up the same type of traps that Tim Means was setting up against Storapoli, especially when he was able to, land the big high kicks that he was able to land in those spots. So I do like Storapoli here. I think he wins by decision. And the Delese bubble is going to continue to burst, as I just don't think the guy is really that good. Chris is saying Delese got that one, hold him down. Could. I'm not sure. Ryan Grant saying reach advantage might cause problems for Storapoli. It could, but he's a big kicker too, right? And I don't think with kicking it's going to be that big of an issue for him to close that distance. TJ Ko just says it perfectly. Delese too dumb. Yeah, I agree. Delese was already slow at heavyweight. At middleweight, he fights in slow motion. Yeah, good point. Yeah, Storapoli is definitely going to have the speed advantage here, which I think should very much help him. Got to tighten up my mic here. I'm not sure why it's. There you go. Danny Lopez saying Roman slows down so much in round 3. I agree. That boy B Storapoli will win the third, but Roman has the decision. I think Laureano could at least rack up 2 rounds here. I like some Storapoli. All right, next up, we got co-main event time. We got Marcin Tybura against Marcin Tybura against Walt Harris. We got -165 on Tybura, +145 on Walt Harris, who has changed trading camps once again. He's up there at Extreme Couture, training alongside Roman Delese, who fights earlier. So we should be seeing Eric Nixick in the control or in the coaching role for Walt Harris, but I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference for him. Again, 37 years old. I'm not sure how you can truly fix his game at this point in time. I truly believe that Walt Harris is a round 1 KO or bust type of fighter. Now, people want to bring up the Andre Arlovsky fight. Pop for that fight. There's a reason there's an NC there. If you guys see this right here, there's an NC. That means no contest, because Walt Harris popped for some steroids after the fight. Since then, we've seen him go out there and spark Sergey Spivak and Alexei Oleinik like he probably should, but then goes out there and loses to Alistair Overeem and Alexander Volkov because his cardio just falls off a cliff going into that second round. Now, obviously, I will say this, Overeem and Volkov are much better fighters than Tybura, but Tybura is really starting to string his game together. The guy's on a 4-fight winning streak where he's looked very impressive in all 4 of those fights. He's really mixing together his MMA game very well with, striking well enough for about 2 to 2.5 minutes of every single round, and then switching it on by getting the takedowns later in the fights and grinding out his opponents from that top position. And I think that's where Walt Harris is gonna struggle. Now, I wish we can get a little bit more distance from Tybura getting knocked out by Shamil Abdurakhimov and Augusto Sakai 4 or 5 fights ago. But I think he'll be able to handle the power that Harris is going to be throwing his way here. If Tybura can survive within 2.5 to 3 minutes of this fight, I think he should be able to take over. I think he has the volume advantage. The longer that this fight goes, he's going to have the cardio advantage. And obviously, he's going to have the wrestling and grappling advantage, as I do think he's going to be able to ground Walt Harris with relative ease here and then kind of just whoop him from on top. I think Harris has nothing outside of the first round, and I think he's going to truly struggle against a a complete mixed martial artist and Marcin Tybura here. Marcin would be my lock of the night play if I didn't feel he had a little bit of worries in terms of his chin and his durability, especially dealing with a heavy hitter like Walt Harris. But I love Tybura in the spot. I think he cruises here. As long as he doesn't get knocked out early, he should be able to go out there and do what he needs to do. Again, mix and takedowns, get that top control, and really start to work Walt Harris. The spots I like, Tybura inside the distance, round 2, round 3 finishes, I think are very live for him. But yeah, I think he whoops Walt Harris here as long as he doesn't get clipped early. I got Marcin Tybura, and I got him as via finish. Chris Music is saying Harris by KO. Seems like me and Chris are on completely different sides on this whole card, but it is what it is. Good luck to you, my brother. Ryan Grant, Harris round 1 KO or Tybura all day. I agree. I'm on Tybura here. Matt McKay, wow, this is really even. Both guys below average, unpredictable. No, I do think that Tybura is at least a top 10 fighter. I don't think that Harris is a top 10 fighter. Don Q, I see this as a carbon copy matchup with a Hardy fight. I absolutely agree. Crazy that we got even odds on Tybura last time around. Absolute disrespect for Marcin Tybura there. I remember posing the question to Twitter a couple of days ago, who would you guys take in a fight between Greg Hardy and Walt Harris? And, there was, I believe, 60% of voters or 69% of voters that took Walt Harris, and then 30-ish% that took Greg Hardy. And I'd personally take Greg Hardy in that fight. I think he has way more tools. He has a slightly better cardio. At least, when fights are going his way, I think he shows better cardio than what Walt Harris brings to the table. That boy Q saying Walt is done. I agree. Kung Dao Chicken saying live bet Tybura after round 1. That's not a bad approach. Don Q, Tybura might be a good spot to bet live after round 1. Yep. Either ticket KOs him or Tybura by decision. Don't overlook Tybura and his ability to finish fights once his opponents start to gas, just as he did against Greg Hardy last time around, and just as I think he'll be able to do against Walt Harris here. TJ Kill, Harris a conundrum I can never bet on. I agree. Uncle Weezy, Walt Harris has lost every UFC fight in which he was taken down 0-5. If Tybura can weather the early storm, he should cruise. I agree. Ticket will KO him early. Believe you moi. We shall see. Danny K over 1.5 as long as Harris doesn't KO him. I think that might get sweaty, especially if Harris starts to gas later in that first round. Marcin might be able to get that takedown early in round 2 and then kind of pummel him from there. SD Crusader, I'd give Harris a bit more credit than Hardy. I don't know. D Ray is saying Hart says Harris, Brain says Tybura. Brain is definitely correct. I had to take a stab at Walt via KO. He usually bangs dudes like Tybura out. Could happen. Chris is saying I think Harris nearly KO'd Overeem and Tybura is chinnier than Overeem. I disagree with that statement. I think that Overeem is chinnier than Tybura, but both guys can be knocked out. I will agree with that. Harris would KO Hardy, in my opinion. I disagree with that. TGK is saying Hardy a perfect matchup for Harris. I think Hardy beats him, man. I think Hardy has the more overall skills. The guy actually leg kicks and, he has decent combinations. Like when he's able to go the full 50 minutes and things are going his way, I think he has a much better approach than what Walt Harris is going to bring to the table, which is just early power and then very low output. He got outstruck in the Andre Arlovski fight, 24-44. Yet still got his hand raised because he had the bigger moments with the bigger strikes. But yeah, I'm not a big Walt Harris believer. All right. Before we get to the main event, if you guys have not been following me on Twitter, I did announce the cast that I'm going to be having with me on the Ultimate Weigh-In Show for this week. For those guys familiar with the Ultimate Weigh-In Show, I have a revolving door of guests that I bring in every Friday to go over the fights one last time with you guys, roundtable style. And I will say this, I will preface it with this. Actually, you know what? Let me just reveal the cast first and foremost. So, the cast that we have next week is we have my guy Top Kaiki, Aaron Water show on the left here. Solid guy, seltzer connoisseur, very sharp dude, good DFS guy as well. Can't wait to have him on. We have my guy Paul Shaughnessy from Dogger Pads Podcast, the first ever show that I'm going to be doing with him. Obviously, you guys know him from Dogger Pads Podcast with Cody Saftik. A lot of people wanted Paul Shaughnessy on, so I'm bringing him on. and very much looking forward to having him on to talk the fights. And then lastly, we're going to have my guy Liam Picks Fights, I believe, is what his Twitter account is. Very sharp dude, a jiu-jitsu player himself. He's actively competing in jiu-jitsu. The guy knows what he's talking about, and he's very charismatic as well. So I can't wait to, have his energy on this stream. So I will say this. So normally that Ultimate Wayne Show stream is at 9 p.m. Eastern on Fridays. Unfortunately, this weekend, I'm actually, well, not unfortunately, fortunately, I'll be going out for a cottage weekend with the wife to celebrate our 1-year anniversary. So I'm going to be moving up the start time of that show just for this Friday. So there's a special start time this Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. It's a little bit earlier. I apologize for some of you guys that might still be at work or whatever, but it's going to be a 3 p.m. Eastern start time this Friday. I believe it's going to start about an hour after the weigh-ins actually end. So we'll be fresh off the weigh-ins. We'll give you guys our final thoughts on the card from bottom to top. And I have some great friends that are going to be on with me breaking it down. So once again, 3 p.m. Eastern, we got my guy Aaron Watershow, we got Paul Shaughnessy, and we got Liam Picks Fights coming on with me as well. Very sharp group of guys, and I hope you guys enjoy it. The Ultimate Wayne Show has been a complete success up until this point, having 21 different cappers on over the last 7 weeks. This is going to be 24 different cappers now over 8 weeks, but I'm very much looking forward to it. Always fun chopping it up with some new guys. And Paul, me and him have been DMing for a while now, so it's going to be great to finally get on a show and do something with him again. So once again, 3 p.m. Eastern this week, Friday, Ultimate Wayne Show should be a banger. Hope you guys can join us. Matt McKay saying, well, kind of expecting Harris to turn himself up cardio-wise for a chain, and by that same fact, KO that innocent Ty Bruins had too, although I had high hope for Ticket coming in shape last time. He ate. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he came in complete, he didn't look in good shape in the Alistair Overeem fight, looked in much better shape in the Volkov fight, and still shit the bed. But again, it's Volkov and Overeem, very high-level guys. Chris saying Clint's on Walt. Yeah, that one kind of made me scratch my head when I saw him post that pick. If you're picking Walt, pick him by KO. I don't see him winning by decision here. Andrew Marchenko saying, well, Paul Sheik will be here. Yes, he will be on the show on Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, like I said. Make sure to make a Shui bet with him. I ain't doing no Shui bets with him. I know him and Aaron Watershow, the guy on the left here, are both going to be pounding some seltzers during the stream, so you guys are going to want to watch that. I wish I could do the same with them, but I'll be having a 3.5 to 4 hour road trip right after that stream. So no drinking and driving for your boy over here. Justin Villegas is saying, can you get Selma Hayek? If she's into MMA, I will do what I can. SD Crusader, even better. I can just listen during work. Perfect. So it works out. All right, let's get into the last fight here. We got the main event coming up, a heavyweight scrap between Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Augusto Sakai, -130 on Rozenstruik. Seems to be catching some money over the last 24 hours or so to push him to be a slightly bigger favorite. +110 on Augusto Sakai, and I like the underdog here. I think that Sakai is a much more well-rounded fighter. I think that he has the chops to go out there and stay away from the big power of Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Sakai's never been knocked out on the feet. Now, he obviously got mauled by Alistair Overeem on the ground in a fight where it seemed like, he won the first 3 rounds and then started to slow down. Overeem was starting able to land takedowns and then just completely dismantled him from on top and then ground and pounded him. I'd say it was more so ground and pound via exhaustion for Augusto Sakai, who just could not keep up with that 25-minute pace that Alistair Overeem was bringing to the table. Augusto Sakai, I think he, much better MMA fighter than what Jairzinho Rozenstruik brings to the table. Has decent movement, some good striking, good clinch work as well. Something that I think he'll utilize a lot in this fight against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who seems to struggle with that, especially in his fights against Alistair Overeem. Even Cyril Gane was having some success in those clinch exchanges, and I think that's where Sakai should do the majority of his work, especially to nullify the amount of power that's going to be coming back his way with Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Now, it's pretty much always a ticking time bomb with Rozenstruik, right? He could finish the fight at any single point, which gives me a little bit of pause with Augusto Sakai. But Rozenstruik is pretty much one-dimensional, in my opinion, right? He needs that knockout, or I don't think he wins fights. If he doesn't knock an opponent out, I highly doubt he wins the decision because, even though he did outstrike Overeem by 8 strikes in that fight, his form of fighting and his effectiveness of his volume was just not that that good with the judges. The judges didn't really seem to rate it that highly, which is why I believe two out of the three judges had Overeem up 4 rounds going into that fifth round, and one judge actually gave Jairzinho Rozenstruik the fourth round, before obviously Jairzinho Rozenstruik goes out there and gets the last second knockout against Overeem. I just don't see, Rozenstruik could go out there and knock him out. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's a lower percentage outcome compared to what Sakai can do, which is just, hopefully he learned a good lesson from that Overeem fight. Finally felt what it feels like to go into the fifth round. Maybe he paces himself a little bit better. Maybe he doesn't completely cardio dump himself. That experience is nothing but good for him. I got Augusto Sakai here, and I actually think he wins this fight by decision. If I'm not mistaken, it's around that plus 300 range, which I think is very live here because he could go out there, out volume, outpace, and outwork Jairzinho Rozenstruik. But I could see this fight being very low volume. I could see it being very boring, just like the Saragon fight. As you can't really blame Sakai though, right? You make one mistake with a guy like Rozenstruik or Derek Lewis, and you're paying for it, and you're getting knocked the fuck out. So I won't blame Sakai if he takes a very cautious approach in this fight and just does the bare minimum to win it. But I think that's exactly what we're going to get from him here. As again, I do think he's a much better overall fighter. We just have to be very wary in terms of, him eating the shots that he's going to have to eat to get the victory here against Rozenstruik, who's obviously a very heavy and powerful striker in his own right. I've seen Augusto Sakai eat some pretty heavy shots from past opponents, but I just don't think that they're heavy or as heavy of a striker as what Jairzinho Rozenstruik brings to the table here. So I do like Sakai. I do like him to win by decision, but I will obviously be very worried and sweating the full 25 minutes or however long the fight actually ends up lasting, because if Rozenstruik lands, it could be absolute hell for Augusto Sakai. I do see this fight going over 1.5. I think it's pretty much steamed right now up to about minus 190 or so. But I like Sakai. I think he's the much better minute winner as well. And I believe that's going to be a huge part in this fight against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. So once again, I'll go with Augusto Sakai, and I'm going to take him to win this fight via decision. All right. Ryan Grant saying Sakai dug of the night from here should cruise if he doesn't get clipped by Big Rosie. I agree. Matt McKay, actually, I may agree. Tybura retires well. It's lost cause. Eliminate is not a win. That boy B is Sakai. That boy B is saying Sakai is the true lock of the night. Again, I'm not. There are much bigger mismatches on this card, and I hate calling lock of the night plays that are way closer than they are, or as or are as close as is, especially even this fight. For me, a lock of the night play is a fight that, without a doubt, should win. And there are much more comfortable spots on this card. Again, nothing worse than minus 300. That's my approach with lock of the night plays. Matt McKay, Rozenstruik is getting written off. I'll say it one more time and he'll upset it. Average Joe, I don't think Sakai is enough of a power puncher to emulate Ngannou, whereas goes Ngannou, so big boy KO. Sakai is, definitely not what Ngannou or Gan brings to the table, but he has the chops to go out there and put together a very solid MMA game. And that's all you need against Rozenstruik. Stay away from the big power, and if you're able to do so, you're going to be able to outwork Rozenstruik and get the judge's nod. Don Q, Sakai should be able to out-volume Biggie Boy. I agree. Ratatatata is saying, what is the card lock for you? It's currently posted on the Patreon. So if you want to check it out, go to the Patreon. The link is in the description below. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait until Friday when I release it to the public for free. And I will release that on my social medias at MMALOTN on Twitter and Instagram. So if you don't want to sign up for the Patreon, wait until Friday and you shall get it there. Daniel K is saying you and Clint are on opposites on most of these fights. Great. I think when I appeared on his show a couple weeks ago, we were on opposite sides a lot. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I did slightly better. Not try rubbing it, but he could possibly get the better of me this time around. We'll see what happens. Matt McKay, I have to watch Sakai fight, but I caught the ghost of Overeem doing this to Sakai, the same fatality he performed on Harris, back mountain loss. Bro, don't trust Sakai. Did you not see those first 3 rounds? Sakai was absolutely laying it on Overeem in those first 3 rounds easily. If it was a 3-round fight, Sakai wins that fight. It was the first time Sakai had ever gone 5 rounds, so let's cut him some slack there. MMA Kappa, if Sakai is a little more patient, he's getting slapped. Otherwise, if he misses in the grappling, Sakai via decision. Exactly. Thank you, Ryan Grant, for clarifying that. That would be should be 10-3. That Overeem fight was insane. Yeah, 10-3 is what Rozenstruik's record should be. Yeah, exactly. I agree. All right, that's pretty much a wrap on the breakdowns for the card. I apologize that it took longer than it should have. Obviously, we had that gaff at the beginning of the stream with that crazy raid party that was going on. Not cool what that guy was doing. Fuck that guy, Hassan, whatever the fuck his name is. Um, yeah, and then obviously my body's just being like, hey, we're not doing a live stream, are we? Let me go to the washroom. Let me make your nose leak and do all this crazy shit. So very eventful first stream back after a long time. Appreciate you guys joining as always. If you guys haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe below. Lachlan I Play is already posted on the Patreon. If you guys want to go check that out, go ahead. Otherwise, you guys will have to wait until Friday, which is when I'm going to be posting my official picks on the Twitters and the Instagrams. So make sure you guys go check that out. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Just a reminder, tomorrow's Wednesday, no stream tomorrow. Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, propping you up, me and Cody back on this channel as always to give you guys the breakdown on the card from a props perspective. And then lastly, Friday, I'll be doing the live weigh-in stream, obviously, as the weigh-ins are going on at noon, from noon to 2 p.m. And then the ultimate weigh-in show at 3 p.m. Eastern, special start time this week, because I'll be on a road trip afterwards. So yeah, appreciate the support. Love all you guys as always. Good luck on the fights this weekend, and I'll see you guys throughout the week. Peace out.